Question I've been asked a number of times with regards to the Columbo tactic. What happens when somebody uses the Columbo tactic on you? Now, I actually wrote about this in the book on tactics, and keep in mind that Columbo has three main purposes. The first is to gather information. The second is to reverse the burden of proof. And the third is to use the tactic of questioning as a leading technique to take somebody where you want them to go. For example, maybe you want to show that there's a problem with their point of view, and so you use questions to exploit a weakness or a flaw. The first two uses with the model questions, what do you mean by that, and how did you come to that conclusion, are questions that no follower of Christ should ever be afraid of. If somebody were to use that tactic on me and they ask me, well, what do you mean by that, or some variation, I'm happy to explain what I mean by that. I'm glad to give my point of view. I'm glad to explain my convictions. If someone then asks me, how did you come to that conclusion? What could be better for an informed follower of Christ? Oh, here's why I believe that. Boom, 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 boom. So they're essentially asking you to make your case about your point of view, and that's a sensational place to be in as a follower of Christ. Now, I lose a tactical advantage if I'm explaining my view rather than using questions with the other person in conversation to make my view known, at least implicitly. But I'd be glad if there's turnabout to answer those two questions. Now, in the third case, leading, I don't mind being led by questions either, as long as I had a clear idea. I have a clear idea of where I'm being led. Sometimes you get the feeling that someone's leading you down the primrose path, as it were, and they're using questions to corner you illicitly. They're setting you up. And in those cases, there's a very simple way to get around it. You just simply cut off the technique. You refuse to play the game, if you will. If someone's asking a series of questions and I think they're trying to set me up, I might just pause and say, you know what, you're asking questions of me, and I think that what you're trying to do is make a point by asking me the question. So I rather than answer the questions and not know where this is leading, I just assume that you told me where you're going. Just make your point, and then let me respond. Either let me respond to it or let me think about it. So instead of answering the 20 questions that you feel are being used to set you up, just tell him that you'd rather have him just make his point that he seems to be making with questions, just make it straightforward. So you're going to seize the tactical advantage away from him or her at this point. And the key here is that you are completely in control of your side of the conversation. You can say, you can participate as much as you want, you can reveal as much as you want, or you can hold back as much as you want. It's like when you go into a new establishment and they ask you to fill out all this information. They ask you all kinds of stuff they don't need to know about. You don't need to tell them that. Give them your name and address if you want to. By the same token, you're in a conversation, you don't have to answer anything if you don't want. You don't have to be nasty about it. You say, you just basically say, I'm not going to go there right now. I'd be glad to communicate, hear from you on your ideas or whatever, but if you want to ask questions that I'm not sure of the answers to, better to just state your point and take it like that. So there's no reason for us to fear the Columbo tactic when used against us, especially in the first two questions. In the last questions, we just want to be a little cagey, wise as serpents but innocent as doves, and let the person know we're not going to play along with the questioning technique. They can just state their view.